You might imagine that owning an Ottoman hammam meant possessing a beautiful marble building, collecting coins at the door, and enjoying an easy stream of profit.
But in many cases, the person running the bathhouse did not own the building at all. In 1752, an official register recorded 177 hammams across Greater Istanbul. Most were revenue-producing properties connected to charitable endowments, known as waqfs. The endowment owned the asset. A private operator rented it, hired the workers, purchased the fuel, kept the water flowing, and tried to keep whatever money remained. This was not simply a bathing business. It was a heating company, a water system, a laundry, a cafe, a personal care service, and one of the most complicated local businesses in the Ottoman city. The first surprise is the ownership model. Important hammams were often built to support a larger religious or charitable complex. Cemberlitaş Hammam, for example, was created as part of Nurbanu Sultan's Atik Valide endowment. Its rent helped support the mosque complex across the Bosphorus in Üsküdar. The operator therefore began every year with a fixed obligation: rent. Before the first customer arrived, before the first towel was washed, and before the furnace was lit, the business already owed money to the Waqf. The arrangement worked because the endowment received predictable income, while the operator gained access to an expensive building that would have been almost impossible for an ordinary entrepreneur to construct. An Ottoman hammam was not just a decorated room filled with steam. The whole building functioned as a carefully designed machine. Customers entered through the changing room, moved into a cooler transition space, and then entered the hot room beneath a domed ceiling. At the center stood the Göbek Taşı, the heated marble platform. Smaller private washing spaces opened around it. Behind the public rooms was the real engine of the business, the kulhan, or furnace room. A large copper cauldron heated the water. Smoke and hot air traveled beneath the raised stone floor through a hypocaust space known as the tsahenamlik. Vertical channels inside the walls carried heat upward. If the furnace stopped, the business stopped. Istanbul had no natural hot springs inside the historical city. Every basin of hot water had to be produced. That meant buying fuel, transporting it through crowded streets, storing it safely, feeding the furnace, cleaning the ash, and maintaining the channels that carried heat beneath the floors. The fire could not simply be started when a customer entered. Hundreds of tons of stone, brick, plaster, water, and marble had to be warmed and kept warm. Fuel was therefore not a small cost attached to each visitor. It behaved more like a fixed daily expense. A quiet day still required heat. An empty hot room could consume fuel almost as relentlessly as a crowded one. The operator's first economic challenge was simple: attract enough customers to spread that heating cost across as many paid visits as possible. Heat was useless without water. Some hammams received water through Istanbul's aqueducts and reservoirs. Others relied on nearby wells or their own storage tanks. At baths such as Beyazıt and Merkez Efendi, animal-powered mechanisms were used to raise well water. Cold water had to reach the building. Part of it had to be heated in the copper cauldron. Hot and cold supplies then had to reach the marble basins inside the bathing rooms. Wastewater had to leave through sloped floors and drainage channels. A hammam owner was therefore managing an urban utility system centuries before modern plumbing. Water shortages, blocked channels, a damaged cauldron, or a failed furnace could close the business immediately. Even the smallest bathhouse required at least 2 essential workers: a kulhançı to manage the furnace, and a tellak to wash, scrub, massage, and assist the customers. But a successful hammam needed more. There could be a head tellak supervising the attendants, knotters performing smaller services, laundry workers cleaning towels, a coffee maker preparing refreshments, fee collectors, servants, and female attendants in hammams with a women's section. The largest establishments were major employers. In the 1752 register, Tatlıkale Hammam listed 59 attendants and servants. Çemberlitaş listed 58, Gedik Pasha 56, and Mahmud Pasha 51. These were not tiny neighborhood shops. They were service businesses employing workforces comparable to some of the largest urban enterprises of their time. Many male hammam workers were migrants. The 1752 records show that workers from Avlonia, modern Vlora in Albania, formed the largest single migrant group among the registered tellaks and knotters. 649 came from that town alone, roughly 38% of the recorded workforce in those occupations. Another 411 came from Istarova. Family, regional, and professional connections helped new arrivals find work. Some attendants lived in the hammam and sent part of their earnings home. For the operator, these networks solved a serious problem, finding trained people willing to perform difficult physical work in extreme heat. But every additional worker also meant another person who needed to be paid, fed, supervised, or allowed to earn tips from customers. The entrance payment was only the beginning. Customers could pay for washing, scrubbing with a kiza, massage, shaving, towels, soap, wooden clogs, bowls, coffee, and other refreshments. Weddings, pre-marriage ceremonies, and group visits could bring many customers at once. A double hammam, with separate sections for men and women, could serve a wider market. But it also required more space, more water, more heat, more cleaning, and additional staff. The bathhouse also supported an entire surrounding industry. Towel makers, soap sellers, bowl makers, clog makers, fuel suppliers, water carriers, laundry workers, and coffee sellers all depended on the flow of customers through its doors. The real product was not hot water. It was a complete social and personal care experience. The economics can be reduced to one simple equation. Revenue came from entry payments, personal services, refreshments, and the sale or rental of bathing supplies. Against that stood rent to the waqf, fuel, wages, water, laundry, repairs, cleaning, and the constant maintenance of a hot, wet building. Some expenses increased with each customer. Soap, towels, and labor were examples, but other expenses remained even when business was slow. Rent still had to be paid. The furnace still had to burn. The building still had to be cleaned and repaired. This made location and customer volume extremely important. A bathhouse near the Grand Bazaar, a mosque complex, a port, or a crowded commercial district could spread its fixed costs across a large number of visitors. A poorly located hammam could burn through its profit one load of firewood at a time. The greatest danger was not one dramatic disaster. It was the accumulation of ordinary problems: a rise in fuel costs, a shortage of water, a cracked cauldron, blocked heating channels, damaged marble, unpaid rent, too many workers on a quiet week, a new competitor in the same district. The building itself was valuable, but it was also a permanent maintenance problem. Heat, smoke, moisture, and constant use attacked the structure every day. And because many operators were tenants, spending money on repairs improved a property they did not own. Neglecting repairs, however, could destroy the customer experience and eventually close the business. So, could you become rich operating an Ottoman hammam? Yes, but only in the right location, with a reliable water supply, disciplined fuel use, skilled workers, and enough customers to keep the expensive rooms full. The most successful bathhouses were not passive investments. They were complex hospitality businesses built around two utilities that were difficult to produce: hot water and continuous heat. The marble dome attracted the customer. The tellaks created the experience. The waqf collected its rent. But the expensive part was always burning beneath the floor.